Welcome to the Attitudes Podcast. This podcast is the brainchild of Attitude Foundation and Northcott to chat about attitudes about disability. In 2021, the University of Melbourne published a nationwide survey on Australia's attitudes on disability, which will be the focal point of our season 1. I'm your host, Angel Dixon. I'm a person with disability. I dedicate my time to furthering the inclusion of people with disability. I'm a model and the former CEO of Attitude Foundation. In an effort to bring life to the numbers in the survey, each week I'll be joined by current and former board members and one friend of Attitude Foundation to discuss one of the survey's findings. This is part 2 of my chat with Johanna Garvin. If you haven't listened to part 1, go back. Because we don't have much to go on about why this statistic exists, it's hard to, break it down further, but I think we can kind of throw it around a bit. I think that when people without disability consider a person with disability's life trajectory, and they're even their own, they see key milestones. Yes. So, like finishing a degree, meeting a partner, getting married, having babies, all those kinds of milestones. And I think what happens in their brain is that they consider that, people with disability can't do those things.
Yes.
What do you have to say about that?
I think that's not true, and I mean, I know in my own life, yes, things do take me a bit longer, but I do get there in the end. And I think that, again, people with disabilities have every right to choose the kind of things they want to do in their life and achieve, and we can achieve all those milestones if we want to. Yes, it may take a bit of time, more than other able-bodied people, and that's something that I've spoken to my friends with disabilities about a lot. Like, maybe for some people, meeting a partner might take a bit longer, or the bleeding obvious, getting into the workforce. But we get there. We get there in the end. It may take a bit longer, and finding the sorts of support or finding our tribe, the people we want to spend time with, it takes a bit longer, but we get there. And I think also another friend of mine said to me another great piece of advice. She said, we're all on our own timeline, and that's okay. And I mean, I know for me, it's I'm still learning that, because I've realised this year that I'm a very impatient person, so I need to be a bit more patient.
You sound incredibly. You always come across as so mindful. I would never have guessed that you were impatient.
No, it's something that I've been working on this year, let me tell you. But yeah, and I really believe that like everybody else, if we want to do something, of course we can do it. We find a way, we adapt, we find people to help us, and I just really believe that, yes, again, I feel like I'm a broken record, but it's so true in the fact that if we want to do something, it may take a bit longer than other people, but who cares? We get there in the end, and that's certainly been, for me, that's what's happened, and I think it'll just continue, and that's okay, because it's all about timing. I really believe as well. And
so
yeah.
I want to give those 22% of people some things to combat their perspective. So can you give me, like, how many people with disability do you know that are in long-term relationships?
I think I know 10 people.
That's huge.
I know 3 people with kids. I know a CEO.
Yeah.
I know film directors. Oh no, sorry. I know 11 people with kids. 11 people. And I know a few CEOs. I know quite a few Paralympians. I know a singer. I know I know quite a few actors. Who else do I know? I know quite a few successful tennis players, and so many people achieving different things in their lives, that I look up to, and and that I constantly ask for advice, and I try to model myself on in the way that they conduct themselves in the world, and yeah, just look to them for advice. So there are so many. I'm going to stop myself and say lucky, but I'm fortunate that I do know so many people with disabilities that are incredibly successful with kids, and who are living great lives and making huge amounts of money, and just doing what they want to do, and yeah, continually building their own lives.
I think it's really powerful to combat those points of view. So thank you, because that's huge. I read an article the other day about how when you're in your 30s, once you hit your 30s, that's pretty much it. Like you're stuck with the people in your friend group, and you pretty much just kind of, it's on a decline from there. It's rare to make new friends post 30.
That's good enough.
But I don't feel like that's true for me. I feel like what you were saying about how, it has almost made you more outgoing.
Yes.
Having to, make your own destiny along the way. I feel like one of my goals in my life was to make sure that I have a community around me, because I am, I can kind of lean towards an introverted kind of space, but, it makes me happy in my brain to have people around me. And
yes.
So, I'm over 30 and I'm still making new friends, and I'm the person that, comes up to you at the dog park and I'm like, hi.
Yes.
I just live down the road. Where do you live?
Yes. Yeah, and that's a great way to meet people. I do.
And so it's interesting, those skill sets that came through in your bio. Yes, you went to university. Yes, you were afforded all these opportunities because you feel like you fit into this particular group of people that, sometimes get these opportunities. But there's something to be said for the social and kind of incidental skills built along the way.
Oh, so much, Angel, much.
That give us so much to look forward to.
Yes.
They're skills that we hold for the rest of our lives. And it's true of anyone, but I think it really is very true for people with disability.
Yeah. And I think one of the great things for us is that we really appreciate the small wins as well, more than other people. I mean, I know I do, like the fact, even just putting my shoes on some days, that's a small win for me, or, getting out the door on time. So that's also been a really great thing too. But yeah, socially, it's a really interesting thing as well, and it's something that I've been reflecting on too, because I think for a long time I really did things so certain people would like me, but I've realized that no, my true friends would just like me for me. Like, I don't have to do anything different or try to act differently around them to be their friend. And the social side of things is so interesting, and just I think that was really big for me, particularly when I left school and was really given the opportunity to build my own friendship groups, because my friendship groups at school, they were a bit tricky, and it's a kind of that thing of where you're kind of forced to be with people that you wouldn't necessarily want to. So being an adult and now being afforded the choice of, okay, I want to hang out with these people or I don't want to, and that's fine. Like, it's great having that sense of autonomy too, and I think that's something too that I really appreciate as a person with a disability, having that sort of choice, that sort of choice in who I want in my life and who I don't as well, and who I ask for advice. And yeah, that's an interesting one, the social side, and just that sort of, and I know you would feel like this too, the sort of sense of community that you feel not only in the disabled community, but when you really find people that align with your values and who you are, it's great.
We've talked about feeling lucky and grateful. We've done all that. I think now we could probably talk to the actual mechanics of it and talk about what you think about quotas, how you see the landscape of inclusion in your industry, and whether you feel that it's on the right trajectory or, you know, the gaps you would consider filling.
I think to start off with quotas, I do like them and I do think that they're important. But at the same time, I'm also conscious of the fact that when you have quotas, I'd be worried about that whole tick the box exercise and just giving someone an opportunity because, you know, it feels that quota. But I do think it's important because it reminds the industry that, you know, you do need to include people with disabilities. And I also really feel like we are on the right track because, you know, we're seeing so much more representation on screen, like looking at stuff like Special on Netflix or all these different characters we're seeing on screen. But I do think that there's so much more we can do. Like, I think that, for example, I really saw this on Penguin Bloom, that the leadership that were in charge of this film, so Glenn and the producers at Made Up Stories, they really enforced the fact that they wanted to be inclusive and they wanted to have people with disabilities, not only Sam Bloom, but people with disabilities involved in the whole creative process. And I really saw what an impact strong leadership had in enforcing that and helping people be mindful of that and actively include people. And I really think that gatekeepers have a responsibility to do that in terms of leadership and reminding the industry that they do have a responsibility. I also think that it would be great to see more funding opportunities given to mid-career creatives living with disabilities, because I think, yes, it's great that there are so many opportunities for emerging filmmakers, but what about those who are more established? How can we keep the momentum going? Not only in terms of telling stories about the lived experience with disabilities, but just telling stories and having meaningful opportunities in the industry, and also not just meaningful, like just where their skills and expertise are really utilised. And I think there's so much. Yes, we've made huge inroads with inclusion of people with disabilities in the industry, but there's so much more we can do. Like, I'd really love to hear more emerging voices out there. I'd love to see, again, more programs aimed at mid-career creatives. I would love to see more, just more people with disabilities given opportunities to be in senior roles within the industry, not just writers, but the whole gamut of responsibilities. So yeah, there's always so much we can do, but I think it's a really exciting time, and it's just up to us to keep advocating. And I think also what I'd say too is that it's up to the individual as well. Like, I've really learnt that you got to get in people's faces. And I got a really great piece of advice from someone, from a friend of mine, who said, you got to be politely pushy, and that's so true, because as you know, Angel, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. And I think it's up to,
I think it's both.
yeah, it's both. To be in people's faces and go, hey, I'm here, I've got these great ideas, I've got these great skills and expertise, hire me. And I think it's also just up to institutions to continue to provide opportunities for people with disabilities to upskill themselves. And also, I think networking, and I kind of touched on that. I think it needs to be more inclusive as well, because I don't know about you, and I'm sure you have as well, gone to an event and it's inaccessible, and you're like, this is really hard, how am I going to get in the building? So I think we need to be a bit more open-minded about those sorts of events, because as we both know, the industry is all about networking, and it would be great to see more inclusive events. And not just for people with disabilities, but just in general. Like, I was lucky, not lucky, stop using that word. I went to South by Southwest last month, and it was great because I saw a few wheelies around, and I was like, oh, good. It's accessible, and it's not just the mainstream, and not just here. Like, it's an inclusive event, but there's so much, we can always be doing so much more.
You've got so much insider knowledge, and it's so great to listen to. And I hear a theme in what you're saying, and it takes me back to I've asked everyone on the podcast about their theory of change, and I'll ask you that next. But the theme that I'm hearing is that if quotas don't exist, or if that awareness of that lived experience needs to be at the table and not just at one table, it needs to be interwoven throughout the entire system. I guess traditionally, when we're talking about people with disability being afforded those opportunities, there's a limit, right? It caps out.
Yeah.
Because the people that are affording those opportunities are just affording the ones that they feel comfortable with.
Yes.
And so it's actually faux inclusion. It really is just this really soft approach to doing the right thing. But it's exclusion because we're actually limiting those entry points. But if we start thinking about it differently, and we do start working from a balanced perspective of skill and opportunity, meaning quotas and all those kinds of things, I feel, the mechanics of it really do start to make a bit more sense.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that you've spoken through that, because I think it's an important topic. And I think it will change, it will push, this statistic that 22% may disappear a lot sooner than what we expect.
I hope so.
Winding up, I have asked everyone this question, and I'd love to hear, you've identified some gaps in the industry. You've also identified some mismatches and things throughout your life's journey. What's your theory of change for this particular statistic? How do we get to the other side?
I think it's a collective thing. I think leaders in the industry need to continually push the industry to continue to be open-minded. I think again, more emerging voices need to be given an opportunity to speak up and be given opportunities, as well as
plug the Attitude Foundation's Emerging Voices program.
plug emerging voices. There we go. And I think, again, it just goes back to the individuals, to be proactive and to find their allies and be continually thinking of innovative ways to tell stories and get in people's faces and go, hey, have you thought about this story? Or I'd love to work with you. So I really think it's a collective responsibility to make changes happen. It's not just up to one individual, and I think that we all need to be hyper aware of that. And I also I really feel that, because I hate the whole thing of putting responsibility on one individual. I just don't think that's fair. And when you have lots of people who are passionate about a topic or an issue, it can really help bring things forward. So yeah, I really think it's a collective thing that the industry needs to take on board and think of ways to continue to give people with disabilities an opportunity and go, hey, actually, we haven't really thought about this side of the industry. There is so much potential here, not just to tell stories about disabilities, but just in general. You think about the writer's strike and the actor's strike that's been going on. Like, here's a perfect opportunity to reflect on that and go, hey, we haven't actually tapped into that side of the workforce so much. Let's do that. And yeah, again, just it's a collective responsibility to make this change happen. Yeah, I really believe that.
That's awesome. Thanks for joining us. This has been the Attitudes Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the survey, visit the University of Melbourne website or head to the Attitude Foundation website for more information on us. This podcast wouldn't have been possible without Matt Field from the Attitude Foundation and Alex Varley from Northcott. Hosted by me, Angel Dixon, produced by Lucy Griffin, and edited by Simon McCulloch and Evan Munro-Smith.